Well, good evening, everybody. There's a few more participants joining, so we'll just wait till everybody's in and then we'll make a start and I'll do some introductions. My name is Catherine Gershon. I'm the Managing Director of the Luxury Holiday Company, and it's a great pleasure to have you joining us this evening. So I'm delighted this evening that we're hopefully going to transport you away from lockdown into the beautiful world of Belmond trains. And we've got two very special guests joining us this evening from Belmond. Pascal Royal, who is the General Manager of the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express train, who looks like he's joining us this evening from one of the Grand Suites on the Orient Express. I bet we all wish we were in one of those right now. He's also joined by his colleague Lucy Clark, who is the Director of Trains for Belmond, and she looks after train sales across their worldwide collection. Lucy's not only going to talk to us about the Venice Simplon-Orient Express this evening, but she's also going to talk to us about some of the other beautiful trains in the Belmond collection. I'm also joined by two of my colleagues at the Luxury Holiday Company, Claire, who is our marketing manager and who has done a sterling job of pulling this evening together, and also Andy Austin, who is our product manager for Europe, who will talk to you a little bit later about some of the combinations of holidays you can put together with the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express. I'm going to hand over to Lucy in a moment to talk to us about the beautiful world of Belmond trains. Do feel free this evening, if you'd like to ask a question, you can ask it via the chat, and we'll certainly aim to take as many questions as possible, or alternatively, you can send a question in via the Q&A function, and we can make sure that we try and answer it for you during this evening. But hopefully this evening is all about luxury. It's all about the exciting and glamorous world of luxury trains, a far cry from COVID lockdown. I know some of you joining us on the call this evening have already got exciting trips planned on some of the trains, and some of you are no doubt joining us this evening to learn a little bit more about the trains and the wonderful range of destinations you can go on them. So Lucy, without further ado, over to you.
Thank you, Catherine, and good evening, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen now so I can hopefully transport you visually as well and show you a little bit more about the trains at Belmond. Here I go. Okay, so as Catherine mentioned, I looked after sales for our trains and cruises. So hopefully Belmond is a familiar name to you. We have a collection of fabulous hotels, trains and cruises all around the world. And I'm lucky enough to work for the fun bit, as I like to think of it, and our moving fleet of trains and boats in Europe and Asia. We also have some trains in Peru, and we take people to Machu Picchu as well. So it's well and truly a global footprint. And tonight, of course, I'm going to be talking about the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express, and I'm joined by our general manager, as Catherine mentioned, Pascal Royal, who's going to be no doubt heckling me as I take you through some of the slides, and I'll be handing over him to introduce our Grand Suites as well. So without further ado, welcome to the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express. We have 17 of these beautiful gleaming blue and gold carriages that make up our rake. The carriages all date back to between 1926 and 1929. So these are the real McCoy. We bought a couple of them in an auction in Monte Carlo back in the 1970s when train travel was sort of rapidly falling out of fashion and it was all about flying. But we just bought a hotel in Venice at that time, which you may be familiar with, the Cipriani, which we still own today. And it was the vision of our founder at the time to transport people to this new hotel that he'd acquired in Venice aboard these fantastic carriages. So having acquired a couple at auction, he then set about scouring Europe to find more of these carriages that over the course of 80 years of history had found them, and 2 world wars had found themselves, in people's back gardens, in museums, scattered across Europe. So he reunited in the end 17 carriages. Well, we have a couple of spares as well, but 17 is the maximum that we run with, brought them to France and set about a huge renovation project that, like all the best projects and these labours of love, ran massively over time and over budget. So it wasn't until 5 years later that we operated our first trip in 1982 from London to Venice. And we still do that today. So welcome on board. And I hope I managed to transport you a little bit this evening from your living rooms to another bubble. Because really, when you step on board the train, you've stepped into another world. And for the next sort of 24 hours, it's like you're sort of living on the set on a film set is the only way I can describe it. And there are so many kind of cinematic moments, you know, not least the scenery that's passing by through your window, but, you know, moments throughout where, whether it's interactions with our cabin stewards, you can see Rupert there on the right delivering breakfast, or in the bar, or where you're having fine dining experiences as you journey through the Alps. So again, just trying to set the scene for you a little bit. And I like this slide because it really encapsulates the glamour of the train, but we have a sense of fun about this, you know, and so it is formal. It's a chance to wear your poshest frock and your, you know, dangliest earrings. And, you know, for gentlemen, it's wearing a tuxedo is encouraged, and many gentlemen do. But also, you know, we do that with a sense of fun, with a smile on our face. The cabin stewards you see here, who will look after you from beginning to end, are great ambassadors. You know, they come from all over Europe. They have stories to tell. You'll get to know them over the course of your journey. And they're very proud to work on board, and we're very proud to have them too. And many of them return season after season. So that's a highlight of the trip as well. So as I mentioned, all of the carriages are from the 1920s. The dining is sumptuous and opulent, produced from tiny little kitchens on board the train. We have 3 restaurant cars altogether. A bar car, which I touched upon as well. This year, we will operate that bar car as a restaurant car due to social distancing and restrictions. It's very difficult to socially distance in a packed bar. So we will have that as an additional restaurant car this year. And you can see, as I mentioned, we have 17 carriages altogether. So she's a long train, and our maximum capacity is 176, to give you an idea. Again, this year we're running with only 96 to allow for the social distancing on board. So if you are happening to travel with us this year, you're going to have an even more exclusive experience and intimate experience, and even more staff to look after you on board. So to the map, and just to talk a little bit about our routes and what a typical journey looks like. We operate between March and November in a normal year. It's fair to say we haven't got going yet this year for obvious reasons, but we will be on the rails just as soon as we can be. And classically, we are traveling between London and Venice, and then Venice back to London. We're doing that more or less, that rotation, sort of twice per week. And typically people do a one-way journey with us and then fly the other way. So you may travel from London to Venice, you know, have a weekend in Venice and then fly home, or indeed, you know, do it the other way round. You can absolutely do a return journey. And of course, we encourage those. And to make that work even better, just to highlight that they are different routes. So on the southbound, we take the Gotthard Pass here through Switzerland. And on the northbound route, it's the Alberg Pass, and we actually go via Innsbruck. So you come up through the Dolomites before turning left into Switzerland. So there are different routes, and different meals are served on board as well. So if you do a return journey, you will have a different experience in each direction. So that London to Venice, Venice-London is typically around 30 hours. So you would be leaving Venice, for example, if you're doing it in that direction, around 11 o'clock in the morning. You would have a fabulous lunch on board as you're going through the Dolomites. We get into Innsbruck, you're normally just having a little afternoon tea in your cabin at that point. And then as we pass through Switzerland, it's time to dress for dinner. And enjoy a fabulous meal on board. And then when you wake up in the morning, you're just coming into Paris. And in Paris, you know, we have plenty of guests who disembark there and finish their journey there. And for those of you continuing to London, we board some fresh lobsters in Paris, and we serve the most fabulous lobster brunch on your way through northern France before crossing the Channel. And then it's our sister train, which I'll talk to you a little bit about in a moment, the British Pullman, that operates the final leg of the journey with afternoon tea from Folkestone to London. As you can see, we have some other destinations on this map. So we, throughout the season, we do some different routes, whether that's Vienna, Budapest, and you'll see on the left-hand side, we've got some new routes this year, which is really exciting. So we're doing an Amsterdam, Venice. So, you know, if you want to connect you know, your Dutch old masters with your, you know, Titians and Tintorettos, and that's a really fabulous journey to do. We also have departures from Florence and from Rome heading to Paris. They're one-night journeys as well, so really great if you're planning on heading to Tuscany this year. And we have a Geneva-Venice departure, which is a really nice opportunity as well to combine Switzerland with Venice. So just to name a few highlights on that route. And then, of course, and then I will move on. I'm always too long on this slide because there's so many different elements to discuss here. But I have to mention, of course, Istanbul. So this is the famous journey, you know, which you know, inspired Agatha Christie to write Murder on the Orient Express. And as you'll know, I'm sure, you know, on that train was traveling from Istanbul to Paris. It actually really happened back in the 1920s that a train did get stuck in a snowdrift on its way out of that route and was stuck for several days. And Agatha Christie read about this news, and from that, you know, thought, well, imagine if a murder were to happen on board, and, you know, and thus the famous book was born. So we do that journey just once per year in both directions. It's a 5-night journey, and we alternate nights on the train with hotel stays so that you have a chance to get off and stretch your legs and to experience Bucharest and Budapest as we pass through Europe. It's the most wonderful experience. It really is a trip of a lifetime. So add it to your bucket lists. Right, I am going to move on now. I promised I'd just talk about the British Pullman. So we have a sister fleet of carriages in the UK, a separate train called the British Pullman that works in conjunction with the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express to add that London connection. These are beautiful old carriages as well, from the 20s, 30s and 40s. A different style to the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express, but equally as historic, and each has its own history to tell as well. And this train, when it's not operating that connection to bring people to and from Venice, we have a programme of day trips around the UK throughout the year. So we visit Bath or York. You know, we do lunch trips where you stay on board and have a fine dining experience as you roll through the English countryside. So just to highlight, you know, if you're looking at doing something closer to home, as soon after the 17th of May as we possibly can, in fact, the 19th of May, we will be operating our journeys on the British Pullman as well. So back to the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express, and just to talk a little bit about dining. This is one of our 3 restaurant cars. It's called Côte d'Azur, but we often refer to it as Lalique on board because, as you can see here, it has these beautiful Lalique glass panels, and it's for this reason, it's for many people their favourite of our 3 restaurant cars. And if you can imagine, you know, you are passing through some of Europe's most magnificent scenery, and the chefs are really creating miracles from tiny little kitchens, you know, and you'll see them at work as you move through. So both lunch and then dinner are real highlights of the journey. Dinner in particular, everyone will dress to impress. There's a real sense of occasion. The service is absolutely exquisite. To match the food. So it's dining is very much part of the experience on board. And the bar, of course, as I mentioned, this is going to look a little different this year as it will be set up as a dining car. But if you're looking to travel in 2022, we will be operating it as you see it here. We have a baby grand piano just out of shot, so there's always live music, and there will be live music this year as well, I should say, in its restaurant car format too. So this is a really great place to come and relax during the day as much as in the evening. We serve, of course, an amazing array of cocktails on board, and you know, you really do feel like you've stepped into another world when you're sipping your G&T in the bar on the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express. Here's just a little shot. This was actually a really fun trip, wasn't it, Pascal? Because this was Berlin.
But the first Berlin, yeah.
The first Berlin, it was really fun. In fact, that's me. I can see myself. Just, can you see my hair on that?
Yeah, I can see your
sitting
hair.
in the bar. See my hair, thank you. It was such good fun. We found a jazz band in Berlin who, you know, sang German jazz in German. It was really a fun trip, you know. And so from time to time, we always have a pianist as a minimum, but from time to time, we invite other live music on board as well, which creates just the most fantastic atmosphere in there. And then just to talk a little bit about the cabins, and then I will hand over to you, Pascal. I know I'm talking quite a lot. So these is a classic kind of twin cabin by day. You can see the, you know, the gleaming varnish here, the beautiful marquetry we have. Again, there's Rupert, one of our long-standing stewards, heading past with looks like a bottle of something bubbly for guests on board. And then by night, that typical couchette style, you know, on the sleeper trains of Europe of old, that will convert into little bunk beds. And then you have your little wash basin as well. So it really is, you know, you can imagine when you're getting ready for dinner and the train's moving on and you're trying to do your lipstick in the in the mirror here, you know, it's all part of that bit, that sort of transportation and the golden age of travel. And there was a real sense of adventure and glamour about the whole affair. I highly recommend a cabin suite. So most of those twin cabins I showed you, you know, I'm not going to lie, they're not enormous. They're exactly as they would have been in 1926. So you have the opportunity of taking a cabin suite because most of our cabins interconnect and you can take two cabins like this. So that means both guests can sleep at lower berth. As Pascal always says, nobody has to go backwards then as well. You know, you can switch sides as the train switches direction as well. And you have the two vanity units to get ready as well, and quite literally double the space, but we don't charge double, which is very nice of us. So there is a supplement attached, but I highly recommend going for a cabin suite. And just to show you how they look by night, so you have the feel of that as well. And this is one of our kimonos you see hanging up. So we provide kimonos, slippers, toiletries, and so on for you on board in the carriages. And without further ado, Pascal, I'm going to hand over to you because I know you're extremely proud about our grand suites. So I'll move on to the next slide and please go ahead and introduce them and let me know when you want to move on to the next slide.
Lucy, can I just make a quick interjection before Pascal talks to us about the lovely grand suites? We've got two questions regarding the cabins, which I think it'd be great if you could answer now. The first is, how much headroom is there on the top bunk?
Oh, I don't know well, Pascal, maybe you can answer. I don't know literally in inches or centimeters how much, but there is generally the ceilings are pretty high in the carriages. Pascal, well, maybe you could want to take that one.
Luce, if you can show the Grand Suite photo again, it will be clear to people that the ceiling is curved. So you can actually, I could not sit 100%. I will have to recline a little bit, but I can pretty much sit on the top bank because of the extra height of the ceiling being curved. So that won't be a problem for anybody going on the top bank or going down from the top bank.
Yeah, so I think probably more the point about the person sleeping on the top bunk is you need to have the mobility to be able to climb up the ladder, even after a couple of glasses of champagne. And then the second question regarding carriages is, are any of the carriages wheelchair accessible?
Pascal, do you want to take that? No, they're not.
No, unfortunately, they're not. The historical carriages, so the width of the corridor and the width of the door don't allow for wheelchair access. We do have our own airline wheelchair, so we can actually transport somebody from their compartment to the actual dining car and back, but that person has to be with some mobility to be able to go onto our wheelchair.
Great, lovely. Thank you, Pascal and Lucy. Pascal, back to you to talk about the Grand Suites.
Thank you very much. So I'm very excited. First of all, thank you for inviting me and thank you for giving me an opportunity to give you all a preview of the new Grand Suite. Nobody's seen this suite, obviously because of COVID, we haven't been able to operate last year. So they are totally brand new and they haven't been seen by anyone. So what happened in the Grand Suite, it's basically, as an ex-cabin steward, I had a dream, and the dream was to one day be able to actually remove all the compartments from one car, create 3 suites, create a full ensuite with a shower, with private facilities. And 3 years ago, I was given this opportunity and quite a substantial amount of money. So off we went to work. And what we did, the one you're looking at right now, which is Prague, it's basically inspired by that destination, and that's the theme we've created for those 3 suites. So we have Prague, we have Vienna, we have Budapest, and every suite is very much the same in layout, but totally different design, totally different color scheme, totally different accessories. What you need to imagine, it's basically each suite represent 1/3 of a carriage. So in those sleeping cars, it's basically 3 suites and the little pantry for your cabin steward, because there is a cabin steward who looks after the guest of this 3 suite for the entire journey, but it's basically 1/3 of a carriage. The inspiration came from our British designer in London, and what was really fun is they went to each destination, look for iconic pieces of detail, colors of fabric that we could actually bring into the carriage. But my favorite part was I could actually send somebody to the flea market in Paris, in Vienna, in Budapest, and look for my lights. I'm very particular about lights, and I like to have as many original details and authenticity in the carriage. And we managed to find in Paris some Lalique and even some Baccarat. So what's really fun for me is, in addition to creating a brand new experience and an ultimate private experience, was to be able to give you a feel and touch for the real thing. So we did the same with the marquetry. Our fantastic marketer in France, who restores our carriages normally, was allowed this time with the designer to create brand new marquetry, and all totally individual to the destination once again. Each suite, it's made of what I would call a bedroom, where you have a double bed that can actually convert into 2 twin beds if you'd like to. There is a sofa bed that converts as well as an additional bed, but I would say more for a teenager or a carer, that wouldn't be an actual bed as such. It's more an additional help. And obviously, if you were traveling with your own child, there wouldn't be any extra for that. But what was really important for us was to create the ensuite and be able to give our guests facilities, showers, and obviously we took the opportunity to look at what they used to do back then. So all the walls are one piece of marble, they all heated. The floor is a mosaic that was made by an actual artisan, who's the man who was chosen to restore the Paris Opera House. And he does now all the mosaic we do have in our bathroom of the Grand Suite. So for me, and Lucy, if we can go back to one of the previous photos, to me, what the most important when you step on board is they don't look brand new. They look totally part of the DNA of the train, and they look like they've always been there. One of the reasons, and we mentioned it about the ceiling height, is the fact that we've kept the actually look and feel of the ceiling, the fact that we kept all the accessories, I mean, your windows are fully opening and they have the original brass handle. We've kept as well the little bed light behind your headboard, they're still there, the luggage rack. We've tried to keep as many elements of the original cabin while creating a brand new environment. Now, I say brand new, we cheated a little bit because we went back to the archive, and actually back in the late 1800, early 1900, some very rich individuals were able to actually purchase Orient Express carriages, modify them to their need, and bring the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, the salon, the office. And this was part of the inspiration why we went on to 3 Grand Suites in one of the carriage. So I'm extremely, extremely pleased by the result because they look exactly as if they were always part of the train and they were always there. In terms of amenities, as I mentioned before, you have your own cabin steward who look after you 24 hours. Obviously, one of the inclusion is you have a private transfer at the point of departure and at the point of arrival. So we can actually look after you much more exclusively and privately. Of course, you'll have caviar amenities when you step on board and free flow champagne for the entire journey. In terms of the bathroom, we've got amenities by Guerlain, which I'm really happy about. But the most important for me was to be able to give our guests a little bit of their trip at home. And one of my peculiarities, I may say, working in the hotel business is I don't like to use somebody else's bathrobe. So one of the things I wanted to do for the Grand Suite guest is to be able to give you a brand new bathrobe, which actually you can take home or we can actually ship to you. Ship to you purely because they're extremely fluffy. We took the design of our sheet, which is a damask design, and we actually produced it in 3D on the bathrobe. So they're quite fluffy and quite bulky. So that's why we always tell our guests, if you don't want to put it in your luggage because it's going to take space, let us know and we'll ship it at home for you. So this is the Grand Suite. We've got those brand new one, like I said, that nobody's seen, Budapest, Vienna, and Prague. Of course, we did create some more, and we do have Venice, Paris, and Istanbul that we did 3 years ago, but these are the new ones that nobody's seen. Now, before I move on to the next bit, which is going to be my little story about Agatha Christie, and I thought, Lucy, you were going to tell everybody, this carriage has another very special element. This carriage that you're looking at is from 1926, and it was one of the carriage stuck in the snowdrift back in 1929, 80 kilometers outside Istanbul, that Agatha Christie read about in a newspaper, and that gave her the idea to write the novel. So this carriage is really dear to us because it's on that original journey that Agatha Christie got the idea, but as well because that carriage is the oldest one and it will turn 100 in another 5 years. So it's a very, very special carriage for us. And we all feel, apart from the love for the train, but it's being custodian as well of a little bit of history and our Western culture, let's say. Last but not least, if we have some friends and family and you want to book the entire carriage, which is possible, we've created as well, and that's very much following the after COVID effect, but that was purely a coincidence. In the La Ligue dining car where Lucy is actually sitting, I've actually taken one coupe, removed all the table and chairs and created a long imperial table that can seat 6 to 8 guests and that's only for the guests who will book the entire carriage. I will hold their lunch and their dinner. And what we will organize is it will be even a little bit more customized in a sense where our executive chef, Igor, will actually call the guest ahead of their journey, organize their menu, organize their wines, and then they will have this long imperial table in the La Ligue dining car, in a private coupe, with a customized dinner when they can celebrate finally the joy of being able to travel again, and more importantly, to be able to travel on board of the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express. So this is what we've created. I'm looking forward to welcoming you all on board of the train, obviously on board of these beautiful suites. And Lucy, it's all back to you.
Thank you, Pascal. Thank you. As you can see, Pascal's very proud of these new creations, and he touched upon it, but actually just to explain, so Pascal joined, it must be nearly 30 years ago now, Pascal, if I may say.
Okay, that's scary now. On the 26th of June next year, I would have stepped on board for the first time as a cabin steward. I knew nothing about hospitality. I didn't even know how to make a gin and tonic.
So yes, So that started his journey with the company as a cabin steward on one of those very early trips. And then
shoving coal. You've got to say shoving coal, because we still shove
yes,
coal.
actually, we still do that. Exactly. So the heating in the carriages is powered by little coal stoves, and you'll see your cabin steward, with their apron on, shoveling coal, particularly if you travel early or late in the season when there's still snow in the Alps. So Pascal was shoveling that coal himself some 30 years ago. And then, with Belmond having a very global reach, has worked his way up through the company. We're in Australia, Cambodia, Mexico. A true life of a traveling general manager. And then the top job came up, GM of Venice Simplon-Orient-Express. So he's come back home. So we're very lucky to have someone who's done that full journey and knows what it's like to shovel the coal, and now to be in charge of creating these fabulous suites. So yeah, we're very lucky. Okay, so that's kind of it for the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express. I hope we've inspired you and sort of welcomed you a little bit into our world. I have 2 more trains to talk about. So Lucy, without further ado, I'll do that. Sorry, you have questions, I'm sure. Yeah. Sorry, Catherine, go.
Before you jump on, a couple of quite key questions. So as lovely as the bathrooms are in a Grand Suite, quite a few people have asked a question about if you take a twin carriage or a cabin suite, then what do you have in the way of bathroom facilities?
You have the little sort of vanity unit we showed you with a sink, and for having a wash in your cabin. So there are no showers, and the loo is down the corridor. So it's quite true that, if nature calls at, 3 in the morning, you will pop on your little kimono and slippers and pop off down the corridor. You may cross, Hercule Poirot coming the other way. And yes, the bathroom facilities are shared, and there are no showers. So when I talked about stepping back into the past and traveling as you would have done then, that's very much the case in terms of the bathroom facilities in our regular carriages. What I would say is only ever 1 night on board, so you'll never see a trip that's more than 1 night. And of course, you have a shower the day you leave, and then you have a shower in your hotel the day you arrived. So it really is tends to not be an issue for people on board, as long as you know that in advance.
While I know you never do more than 1 night on the train, there are longer trips that you can take on the train where you kind of do a night on the train, a night off the train. Could you maybe just, we've got a question about what's the longest trip in terms of number of nights you would get on the train that you can take?
The longest one is the Istanbul journey that I mentioned when we were looking at the map earlier. So that's our 5-night journey. And as you rightly say, Catherine, it's alternate nights. So you'll have, Istanbul to Paris, for example, Istanbul to Bucharest on the train. Then you have a night in Bucharest in a hotel, Bucharest to Budapest on the train, a night in Budapest, and then Budapest to Paris is your final night on board. So yes, we always, when we do longer journeys, we include the hotel stays. Yes, that's how it works.
And then a couple more questions, if I may. Are all the restaurant cars now air conditioned?
Yes, the entire train is now air conditioned. Yeah, so actually Pascal sort of joined the train. You've done quite a few, you've been busy actually, Pascal, and one of the big things was to put air conditioning in. So we have air conditioning throughout the train, and it's individually controlled in your cabin. Of course, you can open the windows if you prefer natural aircon of the breeze coming in too.
Okay, and then just to clarify about the bar, which is obviously an all-important question. So can we just clarify, is there going to be a bar in 21? And if there isn't a bar, how does one order a cocktail, she says, and yeah. Questions like that.
Very important. Pascal, do you want to take this?
Yeah, so basically due to social distancing, what we've done is basically we're gonna use our dining cars in between meal seating as bar cars. So from my 36 seats in every dining car, I'm now reduced to 12, which give me the opportunity to have what I call bar tables and dining tables. Still, you won't be close to another guest, but we will be able now to use between all the different meal seating, those bar tables in the dining cars. In terms of cocktail and drinks, of course, you can order anytime in your compartment if you wish. That hasn't changed. So that's always available, but there will be those special moments, especially during the afternoon or pre-dinner or after dinner, where you'll be able to have your drink in a dining car.
Great, thank you. And I guess it's also worth just mentioning, Lucy, I know you touched on Istanbul being a longer journey, but for anybody that does want to spend more time on the train, it is possible to combine some of the journeys. So Lucy, you mentioned before, you can come out of London down to Venice, spend a few days in Venice, and then take the train back. And that would be a way of doing 2 nights on the train. I know you also have other journeys throughout the year where you can perhaps take the train to Paris, get off in Paris, spend a few days in Paris, and then perhaps board one of the other journeys that will then go on to Geneva or Amsterdam, for example. And there's also combinations you can do, which include Budapest and then Prague in 22. So for those of you who've either taken the train before or are looking for more nights, it's certainly something you can speak to our consultants about. We're very good at combining trips. You know, have some clients maybe take the train to Venice, then we move them to Verona and they get back on and come back up from Verona. So there are some really great combinations you can do if you're looking for more of that kind of what I'd call the classic grand tour of Europe type experience with more nights on the train. Anyway, Lucy, you're going to talk to us about some other trains.
Yes.
We'll probably talk about the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express all night. So over to you on those.
I know, quite easily, yeah. So now I'm just going to, now for something, still a train, but completely different. And something very close to home is our wonderful Royal Scotsman. So, I mean, I suppose the first thing to say, having just had that conversation about bathrooms, is the Scotsman, the carriages are not from the 1920s and all of them have ensuite facilities as standard. So it's, you know, when we're talking about Belmond trains and generally it's a general, that's only the case on the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express, where the shared facilities because of the historic nature of the carriages. The Royal Scotsman, nevertheless, feels like a country house hotel on wheels. So it's full of character, it has a historic feel to it, but the carriages are more modern, shall we say. So welcome on board. And of course, you know, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the most fantastic scenery we have in Scotland, and to be able to experience that from a train is something really quite special. What's wonderful about train tracks is they, you know, slice through countryside that, you know, you're only going to see from that vantage point from a train, because maybe there's no road nearby or you'd have to do a hike, you know, to get there otherwise. So it's really taking you through these most spectacular landscapes. And as you'll see in the images later, we have a little open air platform at the back of the bar car on this train. So you can feel the wind in your hair as you're passing through this most wonderful scenery. So the train itself is much smaller. So you can see, you know, we only have 22 cabins here. So in a normal year, we carry a maximum of 40 people. So it's really very intimate. This year's operation will only operate with around maximum 28 guests, again, to allow for social distancing on board. So you can see it's that real sense of intimacy. You really get to know your fellow guests on board, and you're all traveling together in this wonderful, cozy environment on board the Royal Scotsman. With the train lives in Edinburgh, and again, quite different to the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express. This is not point to point, this is a round trip. So our journeys always begin and end in Edinburgh. We do the check-in at the Balmoral Hotel, which some of you may be familiar with, is you know, pretty much on top of Edinburgh Waverley Station. So a bagpiper will pick you up from the station, from the hotel at the appointed hour, and you'll walk down from the hotel to the platform where the Royal Scotsman is waiting for you. And we're offering 2, 3 and 4 night journeys. You can also sort of combine these together to create 5 and 7 night journeys. And again, quite differently to our train in continental Europe, this is all about getting off and exploring Scotland along the way. So typically, you know, you will stop sort of morning and afternoon, whether that's to visit a whiskey distillery, an ancient castle, to do a hike and so on. So there's activities along the way. And as I just prompted my own slide there, just to give you a little idea of the kind of things we have on board. We have a host who kind of looks after you for the whole journey and will lead all of those excursions off board. We visit some of, you know, Scotland's most beautiful castles and stately homes. You have a chance to try play pigeon shooting. We go into the Rothy-Mercus estate, which some of you may be aware of on some of our routes, to do sort of outdoors activities. We have a wonderful stargazing expert who takes you out on night hikes as well to see some fabulous night skies with so little light pollution to worry about up there. It's really wonderful. And of course, you know, Scotland is famous for its golf courses. So if you had, you know, one half of a couple, let's say, who's a keen golfer and would prefer to go and play a round of golf rather than do the regular excursions, then we can absolutely facilitate that as well. So just to show you a little bit inside, there's no bunk beds on this train. So all of the cabins are either twin, or we have some with double beds too. So if you're in a twin, they'll typically be a sort of L-shaped configuration. So with one bed going horizontally and another kind of vertically, if you like, in the cabin. And then, as I mentioned, they all have ensuite bathrooms too. Again, you have your cabin steward who looks after you from start to finish. And just like on board our other trains, you know, whilst you're having dinner, these young men and women will come in and transform your cabin into a cozy bedroom and turn it down ready for you. So when you get back from dinner, a little cozy cabin awaits. Actually, I should mention as well, we don't move at night on this train. So as you probably will have worked out, you know, Scotland isn't particularly big, so we don't need to keep moving all the time. So we actually park up in a little siding overnight, so there's no movement on the train during the evening. That's also great fun for when, you know, if people have been having a few drinks in the bar, and we always have live music, you know, we can head out onto the platform of some deserted little railway station. We are, you know, in the middle of nowhere, and enjoy a ceilidh on the platform, which is quite a regular occurrence too. So the food here is a real treat. I mean, Scotland's produce is fantastic, and we make full use of that and try and source everything as locally as we can, as we do on all our trains. So the fish and the meat particularly is really outstanding. The Scottish breakfast has to be seen to be believed. And again, in a normal year, we have a sort of family style dining. So we encourage guests to sit with other guests on the train and to get to know each other. This year, of course, for our departures, we'll have individual tables for all of the guests. Almost everything is prepared on board. We bake our own bread here, you know, the works. You know, you can pop your head into the kitchen and see the chefs at work and have a chat with them along the route too. And here's our observation car, aka the bar, but this is also a great place to come, you know, on a Sunday morning and bring the Sunday papers. And here's the little platform I mentioned you can see at the back there, so you can go and really feel the experience of being in the Scottish Highlands as you move through on the train. I think we have 67 whiskies on board, I believe, and this is a fully all-inclusive train as well, so you can, you know, try all of them if you dare across your journey, and yeah, everything is included in the price. So just some little shots here of life on board. As you can see, it's very convivial, and this is really an experience where friendships are made. You know, we welcome people on board from all over the world. Our host does a fabulous job of really sort of facilitating, if you like, those you know, joint experiences, and getting, you know, teaching people how to do ceilidhs who may never have come across a ceilidh in their life. You know, and great friendships are made on board these trips. And we have a spa. So this is, you know, Pascal's thinking, oh, I haven't got a spa on my train. Well, we have one on the Royal Scotsman. It's a Bamford Haybarn spa that we introduced a few years ago. We have two spa cabins. We provide the treatments while the train is in motion as well. You can even get your nails done. So we have a very talented spa therapist who's able to perform these treatments even when you are trundling along at 70 miles an hour. So that was Scotland, and then now for something completely different again, even further afield. Oh, sorry, we have a question. Yeah.
Yes, so somebody's asked a question. Could you just give us a little bit more detail about the whiskey distillery journey?
Oh, well, we don't have we do have some actually, and we do have some whiskey specific journeys, but on most of our routes we'll include one. So we have different routes around Scotland. All of them will include at some point a whiskey tasting opportunity, visiting a local whiskey distillery. It will depend where we are. And then we do normally one trip a year where we work, we have an expert whiskey sommelier on board. So for people who are really keen on their whiskey, we normally offer a whiskey departure, one of our 4-night departures, which includes more visits to distilleries. So, you know, that's something that you'll find on every journey. And then if you're a particularly keen whiskey enthusiast, you can look out for our whiskey departure. And we're starting to work quite closely with Glenmorangie in particular. As you may be aware, our company is part of LVMH, and Glenmorangie is another one of the maison within LVMH. So we are working quite closely with them as well on our whiskies.
Can I just jump in, Lucy, for a second? One thing we've found particularly successful with our clients joining Scotsman are that we can add in pre and post accommodation at the Belmond, obviously in Edinburgh, which is a great experience. But for a lot of clients who are based in the south of the UK and in London, we have also added on the Caledonian Sleeper from Euston Station. So the Caledonian Sleeper provides maybe a little bit more of a modern sleeper service. And then when you go on to the Scotsman, it's very much the true luxury experience. So it's a good combination of both.
That's true. Yes, that comparison can only work in our favour as well, Andy. I would say, as much as I'm a big fan of the Caledonian Sleeper, I think the upgrade would be noticeable. So yes, that's a really nice combination. And indeed, you know, even if you get a regular train, you know, it's 4.5 hours from London to Edinburgh, so it's really achievable. And I think, you know, for those of you who are maybe looking at holidaying closer to home, you know, this is as close to the kind of wilderness as we have, you know, over here. And it's a real experience to get out in nature and to experience something really quite different that you might not have done before. So yeah, I encourage you to take a look, and the Luxury Holiday Company can put together some really nice packages as well. Okay, I will pop over to Southeast Asia now, last but not least, where we have the wonderful Eastern and Oriental Express. So once the world opens up again and we're, you know, back to traveling to these further afield destinations, I very much hope that the E&O will feature in your plans. Again, a beautiful train, all ensuite carriages as well. So although the train has a vintage feel, these are more modern carriages. And we journey between as well. Let me just pause here for a moment, because I think for all of us, it's a long time since we felt that tropical heat. And our open air observation car here on the Eastern Oriental Express is a very nice way to experience that, whether it's your morning coffee when the mist's hanging over the rice paddy, or indeed, you know, a gin and tonic in the evening, or indeed gin and tonic in the morning. I mean, it's entirely up to you. So the train itself, we have 41 cabins altogether, so we can carry a maximum of 82 passengers. This year we'll operate with slightly fewer, 66, I believe, so we're reducing the capacity a little bit. We have our 3 restaurant cars. We have 2 bars actually on board this train, the observation car that you just saw, which is partially open air, and then the piano bar, which sits in the centre of the train. And we're traveling between Singapore and Bangkok. So this is a 2-night journey northbound from Singapore to Bangkok, or 3 nights if you do it in the other direction. That extra night is purely logistic. It allows us to pop up to Kanchanaburi, that you can see there on the map, just north of Bangkok, and do the bridge over the River Kwai before we then head south to Singapore. So you see the best of the scenery in both directions, really. You just have that extra night on the southbound. We don't operate in our summer months where it tends to be wetter in this part of the world, so we'll begin our operations in September this year. And as you may have seen on the previous slide, we do stop on this train, so it's a 2 or 3 night journey, and although it's point to point as the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express is, this journey, because it's slightly longer, we include 2 half-day excursions, so you do have a chance to get off the train and explore a little bit as you're passing through. And that brings me on perfectly here. So one of those excursions is always at Kanchanaburi in Thailand, where we visit the bridge over the River Kwai. As I'm sure many of you will be aware, you know, this is a very historical area. The bridge was built by prisoners of war. It's quite a poignant historical tour. We do that by boat floating along the river, and there's a chance to sort of learn a little bit more about that history. Or if that doesn't appeal, we can take you off into the paddy fields on a cycle tour, or indeed do a floating cooking class on the river as well. And then in Malaysia, we've partnered with a local village. I have to say it's great fun. I've kind of got to know the villagers a little bit over my years working here, and we really enjoy that experience. It's a chance to again learn how rice is grown. We go out into the rice paddy with the local villagers and learn all about that. You can try the fabulous banana pancakes they make back in the village when you get back, or if you're feeling active, we can take you on a hill trek as well with a local naturalist to learn a little bit more about the flora of the jungle. So the food, or you know what, I forgot Pascal was here and I almost was going to say this is probably my favorite food on of all of our trains. Pascal, do apologize, only because I really love Asian food. Having said that, we actually have a French chef. Here he is, Yanis, but he's lived in Southeast Asia for a couple of decades now, and he cooks the most wonderful sort of pan-Asian cuisine. But we do always offer a Western option as well. So if you're hankering after, you know, dauphinoise potatoes, then Yanis is classically trained. So, you know, you'll find that kind of thing appearing on the menu too. Here is our piano bar where we have live music in the evening, which is really great fun. This is very much the social hub of the train. We also have a little library here, our saloon, and we're offering massages and so on throughout the trip. And this is the second bar. You saw the other half of it, which is outdoor at the beginning, and the other section of the bar is inside here. So it works very well, you know, to get your G&T here and then take it out onto the open air platform, which we can see again here. Cabins, this would be my sort of recommended cabin as our state cabin. So during the day, it's a sofa and a chair like this, and then this is going to convert into twin beds by night, as you can see here. This is our presidential cabin, but they all have a similar setup. The presidential cabin is just that little bit larger, but they all have twin beds, as you see here. So that is our little tour of a few of Belmond's trains around the world in you know, continental Europe and Scotland, and then in Southeast Asia. So thank you very much for your kind attention and the opportunity to, you know, thank you to the Luxury Holiday Company for having us along. I hope it's given you a moment to dream, and you know, we very much look forward to welcome you on board.
Thank you, Lucy. I've actually got another couple of questions for you, or possibly Pascal. So are any of the trains you've talked about steam hauled?
No, they're not. The exception would be the British Pullman that I mentioned, so that operates our UK day trips. It doesn't do it on the Venice route, but we do have about once a month steam hauled journeys where we'll go to Bath, for example, and we'll be hauled by steam. So that's always really good fun. The rest of our journeys, no. We have done the odd one with the Scotsman, I think about it, but it's not a standard, no.
Great. Although, as you mentioned...
Oh, Pascal, sorry, I just remembered you did your little bit of steam.
Yeah, I know,
in Budapest.
but
you had a little dabble with some steam.
Yeah, I played with it, so that was an old dream of mine, but the logistic problem with the VSO, it's 1,000 ton. And basically a steam train, a steam loco, even as strong as it can be, and with an electric engine at the back, is just too heavy. So I did my little thing in Budapest, beautiful, super exciting, but honestly, we're just too heavy now. We're just too heavy now. But
too much champagne on board, I think.
Yeah, let's say champagne and food. Now, speaking of food, I just want to confirm that on the VSOE, even with the social distancing in the dining car, we still do 2 sittings. Because as we've reduced the capacity of the dining cars and we've reduced the capacity of the train, it's still a first and a second sitting for lunch and dinner.
Great, thank you, Pascal. Clearly I answered that question incorrectly in my typing.
Sorry, I was hoping you were keeping it for the end, but I thought I saw the message passing by.
No, well, thank you for the correction there, and thank you both for joining us this evening. We do have a few minutes left, so I'd like to just hand over to Andy just to talk a little bit more about how you can combine particularly the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express with other holiday options, either having the train as the kind of the grand start to your holiday, or as the grand finale. I'm always a big fan of actually doing the Venice back to London route, particularly for any ladies. It's a great opportunity to buy things that you can't easily transport on a plane, like beautiful Murano glass or something. You can just take it on the train with you, and then it's all there in one piece in London, and your husband can't tell you off about that sort of shopping. Actually, on that note, Lucy, could you just touch for us on luggage on the train?
Yes,
because I know that's often a question that clients ask us about. How much luggage can you take with you on the train, and what happens if you are doing a longer journey and you need to have more suitcases with you?
Yeah, well, kind of similarly to flying in a way, you can kind of check in your hold luggage. So if you've got a lot of luggage with you, we will happily transport that for you right through to London. And you can just take a smaller bag with you on board the train. There is limited space. We don't have wardrobes, for example, in our twin cabins. So I highly recommend bringing a suit carrier. That's normally what I do. I actually got pretty good at it so that I could just bring a suit carrier and hang up a couple of items in it and then tuck away my toiletry bag. But I'd say a suit carrier plus a sort of, cabin side, airline cabin side wheelie suitcase is more than doable per person in the cabins. And then if you have more than that, then we will take it through to London for you.
Great. Thank you, Lucy. Andy, over to you.
Okay, well, I get given the lovely toys to be able to create amazing packages and that sort of thing. So it's great to have the amazing Belmond product to act as a centerpiece to many itineraries and packages. One of my favorites that I have put together is to combine the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express with a stay at the beautiful Grand Hotel Tramezzo in Lake Como. Where clients, or where you will be able to take the train to Verona, and then a private chauffeur will drive you from Verona round to Como, where you can stay at the Tramezzo for 4 nights. Now, what's really great about the Tramezzo, and it fits in perfectly with the Venice Simplon season, is that at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season, they have amazing special offers where they promote free nights and things like that. So certainly, if you look at a departure in sort of October onwards, you could be getting a really great price and some really good special offers to stay at the Tramezzo as well, and it makes a great all-round package. And then from Lake Como, you're driven back to Milan and then flown home. So that's one great example of what you can do. For any of you who've already been to Venice and you think, okay, we're going to take this amazing train to Venice, but we've already been to Venice and seen Venice, there are so many options, and we really handpick our hotel portfolio. Whether you want to stay out of Venice altogether, you can stay in the beautiful Belmond Cipriani, of course, but there's also other options out on the Venice Lido if you want to combine a little bit of historic beach experience out on the Lido at the Excelsior Hotel. And there are also combinations to build in your own sort of private hotel on an island with hotels such as the Kempinski San Clemente, which was the old mental asylum for Venice, which has been converted into an amazing hotel as well. So what we do, we use our portfolio of hotels to create the perfect package for you. We also have access to amazing guides who can privately take you around your destination, whether you'd like to know something more about gastronomy or architecture or history. We can build that into the program. And we also top and tail Venice, especially with an amazing water taxi transfer, private water taxi transfer from the airport into your hotel, or vice versa on the way back. And that's a pretty iconic way to either arrive into Venice or depart from Venice. Obviously, the other iconic way of arriving is on the train. Other options as well, with the new routes opening up, we are developing new packages in Brussels, in Amsterdam, in Vienna as well. So we've sourced some great hotels in Brussels and Amsterdam, which we're going to start working with and building unique packages around either pre or post your arrival on the train. And then for 2022, we've got a bit of a plan in place to combine two of Agatha Christie's most famous experiences, obviously the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express train, but also a Nile cruise on the SS Sudan, and we are developing an itinerary to combine those two iconic products at the moment. So certainly we will keep you posted on the plans as they go ahead. But we are constantly developing great packages around the key products and the key rail routes, and all journeys at the luxury holiday companies start with a chauffeur drive service from your home. This will take you to either your departure station or your departure airport. If you're flying from an airport to join your train, you'll have complimentary airport lounge access as well. So we like to make your whole experience a really beautiful all-round experience.
And Andy, what about opera lovers?
Yeah,
so I'm thinking of Verona.
Yep, for opera lovers, we work with our local opera experts in Verona for the whole season, and we match up the arrivals of the train into Verona to create a whole opera package where you will either arrive and go straight to the opera on the first night after getting off the train, or ideally for a little bit more of a comfortable package, ideally the opera will be the second night. So that's a very popular package. We work with a great company in Verona who will also arrange great private excursions and private trips to make a complete package together. And we can book any class of seat and any range of seats at the opera performances, and we have the full calendar of events as well. Great.
And this might be more of a question for Lucy, but a very specific question. On the Royal Scotsman, the clans, castles and isles itinerary, is that going to operate in 22?
You know what, I saw the question. I didn't know if I was sharing my screen. I don't know if you saw me have a look, but I did. I saw the question and then I was just trying to check. I'm going to have to let you know tomorrow. So I'll follow up with Catherine and Andy. I'm just hesitant because we have so many, as you can imagine, there's lots of things being reviewed at the moment. But yes, I believe it is, but I'll have to get back to you with the exact dates and just to confirm that tomorrow.
Great. Thank you. So I think we've answered all the questions, unless anybody has any other questions they'd like to ask. As you've seen from this evening, you know, there is huge passion and love in the Belmond family, particularly from Pascal, who leads the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express operation. I know the first time I was lucky enough to go on the train with Lucy and Pascal, which was when they first unveiled the Grand Suites, my biggest worry about the trip was, would I be disappointed? You know, I had such high expectations of what the experience was going to be like. And I can absolutely assure all of you, I was not disappointed in the slightest. You know, I remember standing on Innsbruck station, this was late March, with Lucy and Pascal, and it actually started to snow. And we really all felt like, you know, somebody going to get murdered. So, you know, you won't be disappointed. It's a beautiful historic experience. Ladies, it is definitely worth, you know, pack the long frock and the diamonds. One of my consultants has a lovely phrase, which is, you know, you need two things for a trip on the Orient Express, and that's pearls and pajamas. The pajamas being for when you have to, if you're in a cabin suite or a twin suite, when you have to sort of, you know, shuffle down the corridor in the nighttime. That's definitely when, you know, pearls is not enough, and you need the pajamas. But it's a beautiful experience. The other trains are beautiful as well, particularly the Royal Scotsman proving very popular for this year for clients looking to travel closer to home. But I think we're all confident that the train will be operating later in this year. It runs all the way through to November. And then obviously the Eastern and Orient Express season starts. You know, it runs from the autumn through the British winter. So for those of us who are looking for a little bit more of a long haul travel, having not exercised the passports in the last 12 months, there's lots of opportunities. For those of you who've maybe been on the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express with us before, well worth looking at some of the newer itineraries. And I think there are even still some cabins available for Istanbul this summer, so and into next summer, which is unusual because that is a trip that normally can sell out a year, sometimes 2 years in advance. So if that's maybe something you've thought about before, and as Lucy said, something to tick off your bucket list, it's something to think about, you know, while there's the opportunity. Another question, somebody's asked, if you were a single traveller, what would the cabin be like?
Well, we still have, do we have any singles left at all now, Pascal? One or two?
Yeah, we do. It's
Two?
basically your twin cabin, which will be used as a sole person.
Yeah.
Then no, we still do have some on every single trip.
And they're the same essentially, but just minus the bunk bed. So in terms of size and so on, you know, it's the same configuration.
Great. And, you know, Pascal, lovely that you mentioned that you can hire out the whole Grand Suite carriage. I think we were lucky enough to have the first client that ever did that with you. I always thought that sounded amazing. Gosh, I wish my mum and dad had that sort of money and could take the family on a Grand Suite trip. But the thing I would say is the Grand Suites are beautiful, and, you know, for clients who like to travel at that level of luxury, an amazing experience. But equally, the twin cabin, the cabin suites are stunningly beautiful as well. You know, traveling in original 1920s carriages that have been lovingly restored is, you know, I'd like to say it's a once in a lifetime trip, but I think if you can afford it, you should definitely do it more than once in a lifetime. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Pascal and Lucy for joining us this evening. It's always inspiring to hear the two of you talk about the trains in the Belmond collection, particularly the Venice Simplon-Orient-Express. Hopefully all of you, our clients, will have seen, you know, we have a huge passion for train travel within the luxury holiday company, many other luxury trains that we offer as well. Every holiday is unique, every client is unique. So do, if you've been inspired by this, you know, give us a call in the coming days and weeks. I know some people are waiting until they've been vaccinated, till it's clearer what travels we'll be able to do. You know, that's absolutely fine. We're always happy to have a preliminary chat and then firm things up when you're ready to make that commitment to travel. But a big thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. I'm just looking at Claire here and asking, Claire, did you want me to ask about the poll question?
Yes, if you don't mind, that would be great.
Okay,
That would be
great.
really useful.
So one question we would like to ask is, we always try and tailor our marketing, and sometimes it's very difficult to know what things clients are interested in. So before you leave the call this evening, Claire is going to just pop a question on the screen about which one of the trains you're more interested in, and then this will help us tailor our marketing to you moving forwards. So you literally just click on the name of the train that you're the most interested in. So if you could do that before you leave, that would be great. But a big thank you to Lucy and Pascal. Thank you to Andy and Claire for your organisation this evening. Most importantly to all of you, our clients, I hope we can get you away on holiday soon. 12 months without holidays is a very, very long time. So thank you for your attention this evening. We hope we've inspired you. We hope we can take you away somewhere exciting within the next 12 months. So thank you very much.